Are you suffering from staff turnover? Too many lost business opportunities? Is your reputation at risk? If so, you know your workplace culture needs improvement, but determining how to do so and where to start is about as fun and effective as trying to assemble a puzzle with no picture to guide you. Culture Change in a Box is a show that takes you on a compelling deep dive into an effective real-time culture change process so you can begin to feel hopeful and re-energized about your business. And now, here are your hosts for Culture Change in a Box, Chris McClellan and Judy Ryan.
Well, greetings, everyone. It's Chris McClellan from the Whole Care Network with
Judy Ryan from Lifework Systems.
It's great to see you, Judy.
Thank you. It's great to see you, too.
It's a little foggy outside today, but we're here bright and early.
Yes, and hopefully we'll clear some fog around workplace culture.
Very good. I like that. Workplace culture, turnover in an organization.
Yes.
I would imagine that is probably one of the biggest concerns a management team would have. They're recognizing a number of people who are leaving.
Right. It's definitely not a good sign when people are running out the door. And I think it does literally keep some managers and owners awake at night. We just recently did some statistic analysis on just the cost of retention in various industries. For example, we work in healthcare a lot, and to take a nurse, an RN or an LPN, and if they leave, the cost to recruit them, to orientate a new person, hire them, to train them, and all the costs for traveling agencies or temps or paying overtime to their current staff, the total amount of money for that is around $80,000. So imagine $80,000, and that's kind of a conservative estimate. And same with organizations where they have a lot of assistants, that can add up to millions of dollars if there's a workplace culture problem and retention is an issue. And so we see that as a big reason why people come to us and say, we've got to do something to stop this. We don't even know what to do, but you've got something, we want to hear about it. So.
You're kind of almost anticipating my next question. What is an organization or let's say an owner is coming to you and they're recognizing that they're having a number of their good people leaving. Mm-hmm. What's their first thought? Why do they?
Well, one of the things that happens, unfortunately, is people don't always know what they don't know.
Right.
So sometimes it's almost accidental. They know they have this problem. They're noodling on it. They're probably researching or maybe looking for solutions. They happen upon something that we're doing, whether it's a keynote presentation or my book or an article, and they recognize that there's a solution that they hadn't even considered. Mm-hmm. So when I wrote my book, What's the Deal with Workplace Culture Change, the goal of that book was to help people to just look at the basic questions around what kind of culture would I want if I was going to make improvement, if I was going to try to attract and keep the best people. And so what we say very pointedly in that book is we have a bias for that. We have a certain kind of model that we're saying this is the one we would recommend to you, because there's lots of different models available to people. And most of the time, if we don't have a conscious model, we're falling back on the default of what's always been done, which is not necessarily working anymore.
Because it's always easier to go back to what you know,
right?
Rather than trying something different.
Exactly.
And what was I think it was Einstein's quote?
Right.
It's
insanity.
It's insanity.
Right? To keep doing the same thing, hoping for a new result. So we are bringing a model. We actually won an award at one point for innovation in our approach. And it really is an innovation in the sense that it isn't yet fully mainstream, but it is it's a momentum growing around this type of model that I'm going to describe for you. And there's a lot of thought leaders that are leading the way in the books that are being written and some of the case studies that are being built around developing culture as a competitive advantage, as a way to bring the best version of your employees to the surface.
Really like what you just said, developing culture as a competitive advantage.
Yes.
That, to me, that's exciting to hear something like that.
It is, but it's not for the faint of heart.
Oh no, I can't. That's really culture change.
Yes. Culture change requires a very courageous and determined leader at the top, and then somebody that it can influence their direct reports to actually putting a stake in the ground that's unwavering. And that's really the biggest challenge. And the most important job that I bring to the table is to help a leader understand this is the model and this is what it's going to require of you, and not have them go running from the room. Because it is actually quite exhilarating to work with leaders who are courageous and who see that the old ways are not working and they're willing to open to a different way. But it's important that they are kind of handheld through that process, because it's not an easy one and it's not a familiar one.
Oh, very much so, because when you're used to doing a system one way, and all of a sudden you see that it's not working, it's got to be a shock.
I think it is. I think people think, well, if I just do the old system a little better, that somehow it's going to just all fall in place.
We're going to work harder.
Right, and that's all going to just change magically. And it really is about completely changing a system. So the people that we look to work with are people that are consciously aware that they have a problem and they're not tolerant of keeping on the way that they have been. So they're ready for change. They're willing for change. They are open to being sort of vulnerable. And that's really an important thing that we look for. I had a recent prospect who was managing many, many organizations simultaneously, and he said, I need your help, and I think I'm ready to get started. And I said to him, do you think you are, or are you?
There's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, and he kind of paused and looked at me and he goes, I am ready. And I said, good. And later we talked about that, and I said, do you realize that that is my most important thing to do, is to recognize where your commitment level is. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to tell you what I'm asking him to commit to.
Oh, that you see, this is what's so great with these conversations, because you anticipate my next question.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking of this audience out there listening to us today and how they might be saying, okay, whatever, what is it, right? So our model is called a responsibility-based model. And what that means is most people, they tend to think of culture as like, what's the leadership up to? But in our model, as you know, we're all about developing the leadership in every person in the organization.
It's so critical.
So critical. And to most people, the first thought they think is, well, that's too expensive and too time consuming. Because in the old ways, it probably was. But with the new technology we have and the way that we can kind of globalize information out, that is no longer an excuse for not making sure that everybody has the same access and information and practice and skill set. And so when we talk about responsibility-based, what we mean by that is that the intent of the leaders is that everyone in the organization, from every single position, is responsible for their relationships and the quality of those relationships. And they're responsible for the level of productivity that they provide. And they're responsible for how engaged they are and how to work toward full engagement if they're not fully engaged. So that's a completely different, it's kind of like you said, I think one time, you could tell a kid, I'm going to teach you how to clean, or you could just say it's easier if I do it myself, right?
Right.
One is teaching them to fish and the other is feeding them a fish. And so we're really all about teaching people how to fish in terms of their personal responsibility. And so the model is not only responsibility-based, but it's value-based, and at the core of it, trustworthiness and all the behaviors associated with trustworthiness are important to make sure that those are occurring and that they're being monitored and that there's a sensitivity and an awareness about those types of behaviors. So I had a manager recently who's in this model, and he wrote an email to his staff saying, hey, we're entering 2017 in the spirit of personal responsibility. I noticed some of you aren't doing your online training. I want and expect you to do it. If you have dropped your commitment, I want you to come talk to me about it. If I see you've dropped your commitment and haven't come to talk to me about it, I will be coming to talk with you. You're not in trouble. I'm just not willing to do pseudo community, which in our terms is like faking it.
Pseudo community.
Pseudo community.
Okay,
and
I
I'm
like
not
that.
going to and I'm not going to struggle and coerce you. But I will have conversations with you because we're a team that has committed to following through on commitments. We're a team that is committed to trustworthiness. So he's able to already reference phrases that we're teaching around pseudo community, around authentic community, around how to recognize when a trust value, one of the trust values that he was recognizing is that I'm committed to being straightforward. And he was saying that in his email. Because I'm working on being straightforward, I'm going to put it out to you, what I expect from you, what I want from you, and I'm going to ask you to communicate with me about it. And that takes courage, because most of the time, the leaders are a little bit nervous about doing that because what if people get upset with me and they leave? And my response always back to them is, what if they stay and and they're not interested in responsibility? That's a pretty big problem. It helps center them a little bit.
And I guess it's coming from the manager's perspective or the owner's perspective. Sometimes recognizing that change is difficult.
Yes, I think that they don't even know what they're signing up for when they get into it with us. The good news is when we have really great leaders that we've kind of vetted for their willingness, no matter how rough it gets at first, because it can be a little bit more than they anticipated. Most of them are like, I get where we're going and I see the value of it. And yeah, it can be a little hard, but I'm in. I'm all in. And that is the most exciting ride for me, is to work with leaders of that kind of caliber that understand the long-term sustainability goals of creating an environment where we're not going to have that turnover, where people are going to want to stay.
Creating a positive workplace culture.
Yes. And one of the things that we do that is different than most organizations is we really have a fully distributive model. So we make sure that everybody gets access to the same information. Everybody has time to ponder and reflect on that information. Everybody has time to practice how to use the tools. And so it kind of levels the playing field around human systems.
There's that wonderful term again,
yes.
Human systems.
Yes, and to just demystify that, we have systems all the time. We have computer systems. We have systems in our cars that make our windows go up and down and our radios work and all of that. But we also have systems around people's thinking processes, the way that they feel,
right,
the way that they speak and act. And we don't necessarily monitor or manage those human systems very intentionally. So that's what we do with bringing in human systems.
Because we really don't often put that into that term. We don't think of there is a life-work system.
Exactly, and I think that's why it doesn't necessarily get the credibility that it needs for it to occur. I always say it's kind of like if you had a light going off in your car that said you got an engine problem, and you said, well, I just don't, it's not a big deal. We wouldn't do that, right? We would just recognize, oh my gosh, my car is a system that's about ready to go fall apart, and it's going to cost me a lot of different ways, right? Well, we need to have that same recognition around the human systems.
So there's so many ways to look at employee turnover. When you put a dollar sign to it, usually people pay attention.
Yes, unfortunately, but I think some people also they know something's wrong, they know that people are in pain. Anybody that has a heart for people, and most leaders do, they do care about the fact that it could be a happier workplace. It could just be a better place for us to all get along. And I think one of the things that really occurs in a workplace is the leaders have this idea that they're supposed to always be the expert, they're supposed to always be the one to give and provide and to lead. And they actually often get kind of burned out because they're the one that feels as if it's all got to be outbound. When in reality, most of the time employees desperately want to contribute. They desperately want to feel part of. They want to help problem solve. They want to be called upon to be part of the solution. And it actually would ease the burden of the leader if they could do so. But because there's this mindset that says, I'm supposed to give and they're supposed to receive, and then they just do this part over here, but they can't have anything to do with this part over here that has to do with the management of our behavior and what we're working on together and how we're making that happen collaboratively. So that's part of the problem, is there's this idea, I'm a leader, you're a follower, instead of saying we're all leaders and followers.
We're all on the same. We're all on the same level.
Yes, we might have different titles and different responsibilities and different roles, but when it comes to the human systems, we're all on the same level. We all need certain things. We all are required to participate in certain ways and may or may not have been taught that. So one of the reasons it's important to really address workplace culture is because any place that the organization is weak, it's going to start having some disintegration of turnover, lost productivity, hits to your reputation, things like that are going to occur, because where you have the stress shows up is where is the indicative of the break points, the weak points. And so a lot of times, for example, I think we talked about this once before, but the millennials come in and all of a sudden you have all kinds of problems and you don't know what to do with it, right? And so those are opportunities. You have people that come in that maybe they don't have a good work ethic and they aren't very socially interested. Those are opportunities, but most people see those as problems to be fixed, as opposed to opportunities to actually transform the culture and recognize that we've fixed something so that that no longer.
I don't mean this to be simplistic, but it really is looking at something different. Instead of looking at a problem, looking at it as an opportunity.
Yes, it is a different way of thinking, and it is, just think about a typical parenting kind of example. Most parents that have small children, they leave to go out on a date night with their husband or wife, and they say to what do they say to the kids, Chris? Do you know?
Oh, it's been so long.
Okay, they say, be good, don't cause any trouble, right? So the assumption is you're going to be a problem.
Right.
Instead of saying, I know you're going to be great, have fun, I know, hey, they're going to really be helpful to you, right? We treat our workplace culture similarly. We assume the worst. And we don't necessarily approach it as, wow, if this person isn't functioning, then we need to change something in the systems so that they can show up differently. And that is it's that simple, subtle things, the way we talk, the way we think of people, etc.
It's almost like having the light bulb goes on in your head when you recognize the problem, and then there's an excitement that you can get
totally an excitement, yes,
and fix it.
Absolutely. So I noticed for me, the more that I learned to become conscious, the more that I learned to be able to see things through the lens that once I know something new, then I could no longer not know it. So just using that example to carry it through, once I knew that I wasn't helping my kids by saying, be good, don't cause any problems, right? I was able to change my behavior. And change it for good. And I think that's what happens in workplace cultures, is all of a sudden there's this light bulb, like you're saying, many, many light bulbs. And once they know something, they can't not know it. So now you have a whole community of people that have new awareness, and they can no longer hide behind, well, I didn't know that, or I didn't realize I was causing that problem. And that's really the beauty of this, is you kind of make excuses obsolete because you've addressed up front things that people maybe didn't know before. But now they do know.
Helps alleviate the fear.
Yes, it alleviates the fear, and it's one of those things that over time, the results, and the successes continue to grow, and you begin to have faith in the new way, and until it becomes the new norm.
That's why it's so important that we like to invite all of our listeners to join us in creating a world in which people love their lives.
Yes.
And we're doing that through culture change.
We invite you. Please come on with us.
Well, Culture Change in a Box is a part of the Whole Care Network. Check us out online at thewholecarenetwork.com, and be sure to visit Judy Ryan at lifeworksystems.com. And today we talked about turnover.
Yes.
And we've got some more podcasts coming up.
Yes. We hope you can find some of this information helpful to stop that bleeding of the turnover in your company. We really want that for you.
And you can contact Judy at
Lifework Systems, Judy at lifeworksystems.com, and also at 314-239-4727.
I'm Chris McClellan, the Bowtie Guy. I'm creating a life to love by being with awesome people like Judy.